Hey guys, this week on Crap Vegas, we're talking about Venetian Palazzo, more about Fontainebleau, strip versus off-strip properties, and so much more. So stick around.
Welcome to the Crap Vegas podcast.
Vegas, here we come.
Vegas!
Here are your hosts, Chris and Josh.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 45 of the Crap Vegas podcast. I am Chris. He's Josh. Josh, what's going on out there?
I am busy recovering from Christmas and New Year's festivities and all that stuff. And last night, Chris, we're recording this on Tuesday after New Year's. Last night was the big number 2 versus number 3 football game, the University of Washington Huskies versus the Texas Longhorns. And the Huskies, my team, came through and will go on to face Michigan. And I was really hoping to win a lot of money, but Chris didn't come through for me.
I mean, I don't know how we phrase it. Josh asked if I would put a bet down for him with my local sports book, because I guess you guys don't have sports betting in Washington.
Well, yeah, I'm not a big sports bettor, but I thought, okay, I really believe the Huskies going to beat Texas. So I went up to the local casino, tribal casino, where we have sports betting, thinking, okay, you have to bet on premises. You can't use the app or whatever. So I go to the sports book and I find out you can't bet on local teams.
Oh, I know some states do that. Kentucky doesn't do that here, thankfully. So yeah, Josh asked me if I would lay down a pretty large bet for him on that game. And I said, yeah, I'd be glad to. And then I went to make the bet over the weekend, and BetMGM said, no, you're not betting that much money. You've already bet too much.
Yeah.
And I tried to lower it a little bit, and they still wouldn't take it. And I think the max they were going to accept was $250. And Josh was asking for significantly more than that to be placed on the game. So yeah, it just didn't work out. On a positive note, Josh, your bet would have won. But now you get the mental satisfaction of just knowing your team won. That's pretty much the same, right?
Oh, totally. In my heart, I've won, several $1,000s.
Thousands of dollars, yes.
But oh well.
Which makes me think, why even play craps anymore, Josh? It seems like we're doing better with sports betting. Maybe we should just stick with that.
Especially college. I mean, you did okay on college through the season, and my college picks have so far been undefeated or unbeaten, whatever the word is. Yeah.
So we'll never step foot in a casino again. We are now, whatever it is, sports betting pros.
Right. We just don't know the language to speak, but that's okay. But yes, in answer to that, I'm on cloud 9 because of that. That was a very fun game, except if you're a Texas fan, I'm sorry. It was quite the effort, especially at the end. It was a really good game.
Yeah, and for the first time ever, and I guess the last time ever, the Pac-10 was actually relevant in something. So that's exciting.
Pac-12.
It doesn't matter, Josh. You'll be gone here shortly anyways.
It will. Next week, I guess, is the swan song. Well, when this gets released, it'll be like tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, let's tell people how to get in touch with us. You can reach us via email. That's podcast@crapvegas.com. You can join our Facebook group. That's crapvegas.com/Facebook. You can leave us a voicemail, crapvegas.com/voicemail. Or the easiest way is going to be on Twitter. He's at Vegas Duffy. I'm at Small Whale 13, or the show page is at Crap Vegas.
Did I miss X?
You did.
Yeah,
I just kept going.
Totally. X. I totally was, I forgot to interject.
You were very
X.
close.
I don't think you paused.
I was going to see if you jumped in quickly. You didn't. I just kept on moving.
I was hypnotized by your voice.
I appreciate that. Okay, Josh, previous episode feedback. Last episode, we talked about your trip over to Fontainebleau, and we had a couple listeners chime in on their thoughts from visiting the first week or two. We got a message on our CV Facebook group from Brendan. Brendan said, Fontainebleau was incredible. Dice were extremely cold, but the dealers were so wonderful. Probably my favorite crew on the whole trip. Didn't even need to wait in the massive rewards line to get a card. The box took care of it for me. First time I've ever seen plastic chip racks at the table, though. Extremely slippery with the brand new chips, $15 minimums at 2 p.m. on a weekday.
That's really close to the experience that I had, I think. I thought that, first of all, the chip racks, you're absolutely right. They're these clean, shiny plastic things that are really slippery. I didn't like it, but I guess that's their choice. We'll talk a little bit about Chris's experience. He got to pop over to Fontainebleau too, and he had kind of a different experience, but I thought the dealers were great.
Well, good. We also received an email from Nancy. Nancy said, my husband and I visited Fontainebleau for a 2-night stay and thought we would share some feedback. Casual dining options were all very yummy. Casino layout was confusing and gave me a headache after a while. Table limits were between 15 and 25 depending on time of day, but I never saw more than 2 craps tables open. Dealers were good, but the game felt like it moved very slow for me. My husband hit a hand pay on a slot for $3,500. Congratulations, by the way. But it took 31 minutes from the time it hit to get the cash and paperwork. The room was bland and didn't really interest us. We would visit again for one of my husband's conventions, but I wouldn't seek the place out in the future other than that. Thanks, guys. Nancy.
Yeah, thanks, Nancy. I am totally with you on the slot pay, the hand pay. Congratulations, first of all, on the jackpot. But I had one, I don't know if I even talked about it. It was my biggest hand pay that I had at Fontainebleau. I had a couple, and it took a good 30 minutes, Chris, for them to come. The cocktail servers were great. They were coming by saying, the slot attendant hasn't come by yet. What's going on? They were offering me drinks,
I don't know.
But yeah. So finally, I think one of the cocktail servers went back and found the manager of the slot attendants and made sure somebody got sent out. But it wasn't a great experience.
Okay, so we've learned a lot from your trip so far and from some listeners, and I'll talk about my experience later. But thank you guys for the feedback on Fontainebleau. I know a lot of other people sent us messages about it, but we wanted to hit a couple that we had received. Okay, Josh, last episode, we mentioned a review we had received from listener Urban Blues. He gave us a nice 5-star review, which we appreciate. But he commented that he was hoping we could discuss some of the pros and cons of off-strip properties versus strip properties. So I thought that was a great topic to discuss. So let's run through some pros and cons.
All right, Chris, what have you got? You give me the list of what you've got, because I know you've made a list. You're a list guy. This is what you do, and we'll talk about it.
That's pretty much my whole career. I make lists. Pros and cons, strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats, all the good things.
See, I just check punctuation and fix the punctuation in your list, right?
Okay, so here's the couple things, Josh, that I put down as some of the pros for an off-strip property. The first thing I said was table minimums. For a lot of these off-strip properties, $10 is most common, and you'll even find $5 games for most of your traditional games out there.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, as everybody knows this, I think it's pretty much common sense, but you're going to pay the most to gamble in different ways. But as far as table minimums, you're going to pay the most to gamble on the strip. And I think that applies to all sorts of different ways, as we'll talk about. But table minimums, you've got downtown, I would think, Chris, is probably more likely to be kind of the next step down. And then you've got even further off strip, if you will, where you're even likely to find, more common, take craps, for example, $5 minimum games.
Yeah, I tend to agree. When I look at it, I think, okay, on strip, it's going to be at least 15. And you go downtown, you're getting into the $10 range. And then you get off strip, you should be able to find 5.
Right, exactly. And sometimes downtown, you will find $5 games. Downtown Grand, I hear about it every once in a while, but I think you're more likely to find it.
Plaza does as well.
Yeah, but it's less likely downtown.
Yeah, for sure. So the second thing I said, Josh, is that the rules are usually more favorable at lower limits when you're playing off strip. So by that, I meant you're going to find a lot more 3-2 blackjack at lower levels.
Definitely.
Better craps rules. Like I know Sam's Town offers 20 times odds and 3 times on the field on a 12. You're not going to get anything near that on the strip.
Right. No, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, we've talked about Golden Gate and the fact you can always find 3-2 blackjack. And yeah, you're more likely to find, if you're a craps player, the all-tall small payouts at the larger payout off strip for sure. Mm-hmm. I don't even know if there is any place on strip that still has the big payouts.
Nothing that I've seen, but you are right. Last time we were at Palms, probably almost a year ago at this point, they did have the full payouts on the all-tall small.
Yep. And as you said, 10 times odds, 20 times odds. Who knows if there's even a place out there that does 100, but definitely more than 3, 4, 5 times odds.
Yeah, for sure. The third thing I had on my list, Josh, is cheaper food options. I think when you get to off-strip properties, you'll have a lot more food available at a much more reasonable price. And don't get me wrong, I love a lot of the options that are on the strip, but paying $15 for a cheeseburger and $7 for French fries is not ideal.
Well, that's the thing. And I think you're paying, obviously, as we said, you're paying a lot more for everything on the trip. You're paying more to gamble. You're paying more to eat. You're likely paying more to stay. For food, you're also paying more and you're probably getting some nicer options. So that's the trade-off. The pros is, and Chris is right, you're getting cheaper food options, but are you getting the quality food options? That's the question. It really depends on what you like and what you want. Honestly, as you guys probably know, if you listen, I'm more of a casual dining, cheap food guy. So even though I like to stay on the strip, I seek out places that give me milkshakes and hamburgers and that kind of stuff. So I'd probably be really happy off strip for food options.
I agree with you 100%, Josh. The next thing on my list is that it's less crowded. There just aren't as many people when you get to off-strip properties. I mean, a lot of locals will visit them, so some are more busy than others. But at the same time, you're not going to have thousands of people trying to push you away to get to their favorite slot.
Yeah, and I think when we say that, the first thing that popped into my head was, well, what about Fremont Street? You know, the whole busyness of the Fremont Street experience and that thing. I don't think that's what we're talking about. Obviously, that can be busy sometimes, but off-strip properties are going to be less crowded most often.
Yep. The next thing I said, Josh, is that they're more likely to value lower level play. So that would correlate to better offers, which I think is important to most people.
Again, I was going to say, based on our experience, we get really good offers from the DS properties downtown. Particularly Chris gets great offers at Golden Gate and things like that. So we are even getting better offers, and we don't play there very often. If you play at off-strip properties consistently, especially, out of town players, non-local players, you're going to get pretty nice offers. It's just a question of, is that a place you want to stay?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to talk about this last one also as a con in a moment. But there are some off-strip properties, and specifically I'm thinking of properties like Palms, maybe even Red Rock, where they're going to offer the same amenities that you would get on the strip, but at a lower price point.
Yes. Yep, that's absolutely right. And Red Rock is a great example. I mean, Chris and I went there. We haven't stayed in a room, but from what I understand, they're very nice rooms too. And we found it's not quite as nice as some properties on the strip, but it's a very nice property.
Yeah, I mean, if you're comparing it to the length, then it's terrific.
Absolutely. Well, that's not hard to do.
I know. I was setting the bar low for a reason. Okay, let's talk about some of the cons, though, of staying off strip. The first one, you're not on the strip. You likely need a taxi or a car to get where you want to go and go to different places. And there's just something to be said about being able to walk out the front door of your property and have all the strip in front of you.
That's the thing. And we talk about that. We stay inside most of the time when we're at Wynn or when we're at Aria or whatever. We hardly ever go out. But when we do, or when I'm down with other buddies or different Vegas experiences, totally go out and wander around. And it's great to wander on the strip and walk from Planet Hollywood across the street to Cosmo or whatever you're doing, Paris. And you can't do that at off-strip properties. You can do it a little bit downtown, but the question is that what you want to do downtown? But yeah, you're definitely limited as far as options to go from one place to the other.
Okay. I also said many of the hotels are not at the same level as a strip property. And I'm not saying that they're dirty and they're infested with bed bugs or anything like that. But the rooms just aren't going to be at the same level as what you see on the strip most of the time.
Yep. And that's not to say, again, it might not be something you care about. You might be totally fine in a nice, clean room that doesn't have some of the luxuries of some of the higher end strip properties. And if that works for you, and I'm going to say, let's say the Orleans, which I've heard has some, not too bad accommodations. If that works for you and you like the feel of gambling there, go for it.
Yeah, and you can overcome this area as well, Josh, by staying at one of the newer properties. Like Durango looks like it has amazing rooms.
Oh, it sure does. Or Red Rock, as we said, which apparently has really nice rooms. Going back to what you said before, though, you are paying, you're going to pay, I don't know what the taxi would be from the airport to Red Rock, but assuming they don't arrange transportation, that's not going to be cheap.
No, that is true. Something you got to factor in. And if you do want to hit the strip, you got another $20 taxi ride to get out there at a minimum.
Right.
Okay. I also said many smaller off-strip resorts have a lot less amenities. So if you're staying at Gold Coast or Palace Station or anything like that, you may not have access to a spa that you have. You may not have access to shows in the evening. They may not have shopping. A lot of the things that people take for granted on the strip are not going to exist at a lot of off-strip properties.
Yep. So I think that kind of factors in. Think about what you want your trip experience to be. I mean, I would never, for example, want to take my wife to stay at Red Rock. And nothing bad about Red Rock other than it's not close to some of the other things that I think she would want to do. It may have a good spot. I haven't actually looked at that. But like for going to shows and things like that, maybe Red Rock wasn't the best example. but you get the idea. Depends on who you're with and what you want to do. Just think about that. If you're going to want some of those things, some of those amenities, factor that in for sure.
Yeah, Josh also added that you might have slower play due to newer dealers and or players at the table. And yeah, that's 100% correct. A lot of these places are what they call break-in joints for dealers where they're getting their first gig. And it can be a little rough. Some of the payouts are wrong. It moves a little bit too slow. So if you're a pretty heavy gambler and you have a certain pace of play that you want to stay at, sometimes off strip is not what you expect.
Yeah, totally. And you've got a different group of players. And particularly when I think of that, I mean locals. And this, I'm not saying this in any way to offend locals that listen to the show, but and when we say locals, if you don't know what that means, it's people that live nearby that gamble more frequently at lower levels, I would say, more regularly. And that's a different gambling experience. So be ready for that. If you're coming from out of town and you choose to stay off strip, you're going to get a different feel of the players. And I don't mean players that don't have as much money or things like that. I just mean people that gamble more regularly and it's not as much of a vacation and you might not get the level of excitement. Do you feel that same way, Chris?
Oh, yeah. And I was talking, I think, with listener Seth. He was actually with me this past weekend or this past week, wherever it was, when we were at Venetian Palazzo. And we actually had a conversation about this very thing where there's just such a different vibe at different casinos and the excitement that comes with it. Like when you play it win, typically you're playing with people that are very happy, very excited. You don't get a lot of the negativity you get some places. And then sometimes you might go to one of those other properties, maybe it's an off-strip property, and you could have the best roll of your life and maybe you'll get one clap or something like that. But it's just, this is what they do during the day, win or lose. And that excitement level is just not there for them.
Yeah, exactly. So just factor that in. If the experience of gambling is as important as the rules that we talked about or the other advantages, that's something to consider and to weigh.
Yeah, absolutely. So let us know what some of your pros and cons are for staying off strip versus strip, and maybe we'll include them on the next show.
Yeah, we know a lot of people love it. So, and we're not trying to say that strip is better. We know that downtown fits a lot of people better. Different off-strip properties fit people better. It's not that. It's really kind of what fits your style. So yeah, let us know why you like it, especially if you like off-strip.
Okay, Josh. So as I just mentioned a minute ago, I did recently take a trip and stayed at Palazzo, played at Venetian and Palazzo, and ended up at Fountain Blue for a very short period of time. We recapped that whole trip on a special Patreon episode that was about 50 minutes long, had every detail you could possibly want. But I thought we would run through a quick review of my trip.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, Chris. And if you really want to hear the full flavor of Chris, we recorded that. If you're a patron or if you want to sign up for Patreon, we recorded that episode one day after Chris got back from maybe it was the morning of Chris got back from a trip. So he's fully in the mood of having just returned from this really exciting, fun-filled, glamorous trip that he took. So you can hear all his thoughts, but go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say those are not the adjectives I would have chosen. But let's dig in a little bit, Josh. Give me the big questions.
All right. Big questions are, Chris, you had what kind of room? Did you have a suite or a normal room?
I had a suite. I was staying in the Palazzo Tower. It was a premium King City something. It's like one step up from their base level room that they typically have. It was about 900 square feet, Josh. It was on the 8th floor, so just remarkable views from that kind of level. I mean, you could see all of Las Vegas.
Treasure Island, right?
Oh, yeah. I had a great view of Treasure Island. That was terrific. No, the room was very large, very clean, just a little dated.
That makes sense. And what about the casino? Did you get to play much?
I did. I got multiple sessions in. I played a lot of slots, played at some tables. It was harder than I wanted it to be, though, because they just don't have enough tables, Josh, or at least they have them, but they don't have them open.
Okay.
So when I arrived on Wednesday, I walked downstairs after getting set up with my credit and everything else I had done before I got there. And they had a whopping 2 tables open, one traditional craps table, one crapless table, and both were completely full. And so I ended up playing slots for a while. I walked next door to Venetian to see what was going on. And one plus I will say for listeners is that the walk between Venetian and Palazzo is no more than 2 minutes. I mean, it is extremely short. It's easy to get in between those two properties. much better than even Win Encore, Josh, because that's closer to a 10-minute walk.
Yeah, for sure. So overall, you played at both places. Any thoughts on the dealers or the craps experience? We could talk slots, but I don't think people want to hear slots. Just a little bit, a little bit of your craps experience. Anything special about the games or anything like that?
No, it's your standard strip game. It's 3, 4, 5 times odds, triple on the field on the 12, all tall, small with reduced payouts. All that stuff is the same as you would expect anywhere on the strip. I would say overall, I wasn't extremely impressed with the gambling experience there, especially at the craps tables. The dealers were not the best. I'm not saying that they were slow or that they had improper payouts or anything like that. They just weren't very friendly.
Right.
And I had had a line bet up for them every roll. Sometimes it got a thank you. Sometimes it didn't. They didn't seem to care half the time. They were busy talking with one another and not talking to me, even if I was the only person at a table one session.
Right.
It just, it wasn't an extremely fun gambling experience for me. I know listener Seth, like I said, he actually joined me for a morning crap session on Thursday morning of that week. And we ended up playing at Venetian because Palazzo only had one table open in the morning at 6 a.m. And about 20 minutes after I got downstairs, before I got to the table, they shut the table down because they decided they needed to put new felt on it. Because if you only have one table,
handy.
that's a great idea. Let's just shut it down do a felt change. So walked over to Venetian, played over there. Seth joined me for a while. The dice were cold as ice. So it definitely was not a winning trip from that perspective. But I wasn't overly impressed. They let some bets fall and not put them back up for me without asking. One of the boxes I found to be extremely rude. Although I will say I had another box who was extremely nice. So maybe it's just a mixed bag on what you get there. But it's just not the same level, the same quality, Josh, as playing at one of the better strip properties.
Sure. What do you think of the casino floor, just layout wise? Like it?
Yeah, I didn't have any big problems with the casino floor overall. I didn't like the location of the craps tables.
Right.
Just where they were located, it wasn't a high enough energy area for me. And since they only had 1 or 2 tables open, you never really got that strong craps vibe of when you have like 5 or 6 tables open and everybody's cheering and you're hearing everybody. You just didn't have that. I thought the lighting was a little dim. It could have been a little bit brighter in my eyes, but overall, the whole property, including the room, the casino floor, all that stuff, there was nothing wrong with it. It just all kind of felt a little dated.
Okay. So where would you, in your thinking, let's talk about your room that you had. Where would you kind of rank it as far as what, if people are thinking about, we talk a lot about Wynn and Sky Suites, and I'm sorry about that. But obviously you didn't think that Venetian Palazzo fit quite at that level. So where would you put it? First, let's talk about your room. What would you kind of equate it to? Or if people are choosing between 2 properties, what are the 2 properties? You know what I'm asking?
Yeah, I know what you're asking, and it's hard to give an answer. The feel of the Palazzo room, having the split room where there's a sunken living room and a separate kind of bedroom area, although the bedroom's not actually separate.
Right.
There's no actual door or anything to separate the bedroom area. It kind of reminds me of an Encore room, having that split room with a half wall in between it, although the Encore rooms are significantly smaller. But if you're asking me like where I kind of rank it in the grand scheme of things, it's I'll tell you, Josh, I'd rather have a Planet Hollywood strip suite than I would that room.
Okay.
It just has a better vibe to it, and I think the space is more functional. I mean, I'd rather have it than a standard room at, like a Paris sort of thing, or even a Planet Hollywood standard, like, ultra hip or resort room, something like that.
You said you would choose the room you had over that, right? Just to make sure I'm understanding.
Yeah, I think I would take a suite at Palazzo before I would take a standard room at one of those properties. But yeah, I mean, if you're comparing it to other suites on the strip, gosh, it would be pretty down on my list. It'd probably be like 5th or 6th.
Right. All right.
Yeah, it's down there. It's definitely not Wynn, Aria, even Bellagio level. Gosh, I'll say Caesars has a couple rooms that I would prefer over that. But don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm sure there are some people that are big Venetian Palazzo fans and love their rooms, and I completely understand that. It's just not up to the level I would expect.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I was going to ask you, I don't know if this is a fair question, but I was going to ask, if you were to give the property a star rating, what would you give it? 3? 3.5?
Yeah, somewhere between 3 and 3.5. I wasn't impressed with some of the food stuff that I had. The room was just perfectly fine, and the gambling was just okay. So between that and some other smaller things that really perturbed me throughout the trip that we didn't even talk about, Josh, like beverage service.
Right.
I didn't like things like that. They don't have an app, which I think I know it's stupid, but I find that important. I want a Players Club app so I can track how many points I've earned and
For sure.
know how I'm doing and can maybe a digital room key on it. All those things are kind of important to me, and they didn't have that. There was no technology in the rooms. All that stuff kind of adds up to me to make it a mediocre stay. So yeah, I think a 3 would probably be fair.
All right. Fair enough. And we're going out of 5, not out of 10. It's not that bad.
No, if it was a 10, maybe I'd give it a 6.5.
Okay,
I'd raise
fair,
it up a little bit.
And you did manage to go for at least an hour or two over to Fontainebleau, right?
I did. I didn't know if I was going to have time, but I was able to sneak it in before I had to fly home. I took a cab up there. It was not crowded at all. The place was, I don't want to say empty because it wasn't empty, but no table that I saw had more than 1 or 2 people at it. Any slot machine you wanted to get on, there was one available. It wasn't super busy by any means.
Which is too bad, but also kind of what we've heard for some times for sure. Overall thoughts, I think you said the property was beautiful. You like that part of it.
It is. Yeah. I mean, I like the design. It's extremely modern. There are certain areas that really are very elegant and over the top nice looking. The lobby area looks terrific if you're staying in the hotel. The porte cochere is very nice. I didn't have a problem with that. And the actual space itself it's bright, it's vibrant, it's new. I didn't particularly love the blue hue that's cast over everything in the whole property.
I liked it, but yeah, I get that.
I didn't, I mean, it gave me a headache by the end, it felt like, from having just that glare on everything. The only thing I didn't like about the layout, Josh, it was really confusing. There's a lot of halls and corners and
I thought so too.
Nooks and crannies. And it's very difficult, especially if you're new to the space like we are, because it's a new property. It's easy to get lost in that place, which I know casinos like you to do, but I like the casino to have a pretty functional layout where I know here's where all my table games are, or here's where my slots are. Here's how I get to the cage, and it's all within eyesight. That makes it a lot easier for me.
So overall, do you want to go back, or is it didn't turn you off completely? Or did
I played a 20-minute session, so it wasn't enough to get a full feeling of what the property is actually like. I didn't have a great gambling experience. The dealers were busy doing other things than actually helping me.
Right.
Even the box was busy. I think I mentioned on the Patreon episode that at one point a box actually happened to walk over and started showing base dealer stuff on his phone on Instagram rather than taking care of bets that I had going out there.
Oops.
Yeah, I didn't particularly love that too terribly much. But yeah, it was a little slow for my taking, especially with not that many people around. But it was fine, Josh, but I don't know what's going to drive me to come back there. I know you liked it and considered it for a backup second property, but there was nothing that I experienced while I was there. I was like, oh, I really got to get back there and do this or see this. And at the end of the day, it's my biggest concern came true in that by being that far North Strip property, it had far North Strip clientele.
Yeah.
It's the people that when you're playing at a craps table, you're on a decent roll and the guy comes in and throws $37 in to get chips and it's a mix of wadded $5 and $1 bills. And then he gets his money and puts $15 on a come bet, or a field bet, and then doesn't take odds and then gets mad when you don't, quote unquote, hit the number twice sort of thing. Yeah, it's not people that seem to know a lot about what they're doing gambling wise. And I definitely didn't see any higher level players there. And I did walk over to the high limit area just to see what was going on there. And it was pretty much empty.
Gotcha.
Which is very consistent with when I used to play at Resorts World. Their high limit was empty 90% of the time.
I was thinking as you were talking about the person putting down the $37. Have you ever seen anybody put change down on a table?
I've never seen coin. Have you seen
coin?
I mean,
coins. I think I have at a local place once. Like one of the tribal
I'm sorry,
casinos.
sir, and push it back a little bit. No, I haven't seen that, but yeah, I always love it when people throw down wadded 5 and singles on the table and they have to lay it out in order and it takes like 20 minutes to get $37 in chips because the bills are so bad. And yeah, let's not do that, people. How about a minimum of $50 bills, even though I know some people think they're unlucky?
They are unlucky,
minimum is
Chris.
50s. No, they're not, Josh.
They are.
They are not. 50s are fine. 100s are preferred. Nothing less than that, please.
I don't have a problem with 20s sometimes because you get in a situation, if you don't know this already, most cages will not change 20s into larger bills other than less than $500. They cap that at $500. So I don't mind 20s on occasion because you might not have been able to get the cage to give you hundreds, but that's as far as I go.
That's what a slot machine is for, Josh. Stick them in there and you're good.
That takes for flipping ever.
Well, you say that. Some properties have great slot machines that have really good bill acceptors and they can fly through things. And some properties, like each bill takes like 30 seconds. Why can't we get to the point, Josh, where we have the ATM sort of quality where you can just stick a stack of bills in the ATM and it sorts it out and counts it and quickly tells you? So you can put thousands in 15 seconds. Right. I don't understand why we don't have that on slot machines yet.
Yeah. Now, not that this show is not about rumors and all that kind of stuff, but because you happen to go stay at Venetian Palazzo and wander over to Fontainebleau, it brought to mind, Chris, there's a rumor that came out today. Las Vegas locally on Twitter tweeted that, or X tweeted that, or X'd, whatever it is, that that the ownership group that owns Venetian Palazzo was considering buying Fontainebleau. Now, this seems a little early to me for that all to be
it
true. Does,
yes.
But if that happened, and again, not trying to, a lot of people are going to get mad when you spout false rumors and things like that. That isn't this. This is as much of, what do you think about that idea? Do you think that would be a successful pairing?
I do, in the sense that it gives you some geographic correlation there where they're close to one another. You could theoretically walk between them, although that would be about a 25-minute walk from there. But even put that aside, I think that's something that really hurts these properties when they're standalone.
It's
the same thing for Resorts World. It hurts Fontainebleau. It hurts Sahara. It hurts Strat. All these places that are standalone properties by themselves, you don't have that ability to bounce around. And to be completely fair, when we first switched over to MGM property as a backup property for us, a second property, we did so with the understanding that if we're staying at Bellagio or staying at Aria, we could bounce around to 6 or 7 other properties in the day and just see different things and play at different places.
Yep. And we still do that occasionally. If we come down in the morning and we don't like the coffee dice tables, if they're full or they're closed or whatever, we'll bounce around. And yeah, you can't do that when you're at a standalone property.
No. So I think from that perspective, it would really help them to put another property under the same belt. I mean, I was very outspoken last time we recorded that I don't think Fontainebleau is going to survive more than 3-5 years with the current ownership group. I just don't see it doing as well as it needs to. I wasn't thinking it would be 3 to 5 weeks,
right?
And I don't think it actually will be.
I don't either, but
it doesn't surprise me that that's being thrown around already.
Yeah, and I thought that was a kind of an interesting pairing that I thought might work well.
Yeah, I could see that. It would make sense to me.
So overall, Chris, your trip was not a rousing success, and I'm kind of glad I didn't go.
Yeah, you didn't miss much. I think, Josh, it would be fun for you and I to go together one time.
Yeah.
It's so hard to judge these properties when we're doing it solo from one another, because I think a lot of the fun that we experience in Vegas is from us just playing together, no matter what the property is. So I feel like it would be fair for us to go together sometime, stay there, and give it the full experience, the Chris and Josh experience. But
trademark.
I don't know. Yeah. Trademark. Yeah. Thank you, lawyer Josh.
That's right.
So let's figure that out. Let's try to get out there one more trip, you and me, sometime this year.
Deal.
Okay, guys, listener question and comment time. We received an email from Jim H. Jim said, "Hey guys, I was recently on a Carnival cruise and had a situation that rubbed me the wrong way. I am a newly minted dark side player." Well, that's unfortunate.
Boo.
"And was playing at a $10 table on the cruise one day. I had a couple don't come bets up on the come out roll, and a 7 was rolled and they paid the base bet, but not the odds. The same evening, I was playing at the same table with a different crew. Same situation, couple don't come bets up with odds. The DC number rolled and I lost the base bet and the odds. What is going on here? It can't be both ways, right? Thanks, Jim." No, Jim, you got screwed.
Yes,
That
you
is
did.
definitely not the way it is. And nobody would play that way if that was the case.
But it's your
The way
own
it's
fault.
supposed to be. I mean, it is. You chose
Right.
to play on the dark side, so I
Right.
don't have any sympathy for you.
With
but
inexperienced dealers, probably.
Oh, probably. Yeah. I'm sure a cruise ship does not have a bunch
Right.
of don't players on it.
So, right.
So on come bets, your odds are always off on the come out roll. That's the way it works. So if a 7 rolls on the come out, they're going to take that base bet, but they'll return the odds to you. And the reason they're turned off is because on the come out roll, theoretically a 7 is a winner for you. So they don't want to have bets that are theoretically working against each other, where you'd win the whole thing, but then lose this bet. That's no good. So they turn the odds off. You can turn them on, by the way.
Yep.
If you want to request that your odds are on the come out, you can, but by default, they're going to be off. But the opposite of that is true on don't come bets. On don't come bets, your odds should always be working. So if that number hits, you should get paid the whole thing, but collect the whole thing if it goes wrong.
Yep, that's exactly right. I was going to say, Chris, were you ever in your, well, I know your craps history isn't as long as mine, but I used to be, when I was a 3-point Molly player, I would have them. I would say my come bets are always working. My odds are always working. You shouldn't do that. When I say you shouldn't do that, because it's a negative EV game, you want to go as slowly as possible in your losses. So I think that's a bad idea to do from a rating standpoint. What do you think about having your bets working, whether they're come bets or place bets?
I mean, Josh, I've seen it all. I mean, you and I have both seen those people that put their place and buy bets up before the come out roll, and they're turned on for the come out.
Yes.
They don't want to miss a single roll because they're thinking, well, we're wasting a roll that you could have hit something. You see that? It's the same with hard ways working. A lot of people prefer their hard ways to be working on the come out. But at the same time, it's the same principle. If a 7 comes on the come out, you're a winner, theoretically. You're not if you're us, because we have bonus bets that typically exceed our line bet. But you're a winner on the come out, but those hard ways would lose. So that's why most people turn them off, because they don't want to have that, the thrill of a 7 coming for the win,
Right.
but also knocking out their hard ways. So yeah, I mean, you see it all, but anytime you can turn a bet off for a short period and it's kind of standard, I just let the bet go off.
Yep, me too.
Next question was a message from Chris on the CV Facebook group. No, not me.
It's
Different
you
Chris.
again, yeah.
That's all I do, Josh. I create a bunch of Facebook accounts and then just respond to
But
ourselves.
you name them all Chris.
I do. I'm not very creative. Okay. Chris says, in Vegas right now for the first time in years. Last time I was here was before COVID. Literally like a newbie on the craps table, completely forgot how to play after a few rolls, and then everything came flooding back. Does this happen to anyone else? Josh, have you ever forgot how to play a game after you didn't play for a while?
Chris, that is a great question and a great observation. First of all, I'm glad you're back in Vegas after so long, but absolutely. I don't know that I forget how to play, although sometimes I do. Well, as Chris knows, as this Chris knows, I forget bets and payouts and things like that from one session to another or from one roll to another. So
That's true. Yes.
But I have definitely nerves about starting again. Each trip, each morning, it takes a while to get into it. That's oftentimes why for coffee dice, I'll play a little slot machine before I jump into craps, just because I want to get that gambling, adrenaline worked off a little bit before I jump in. And then once I kind of make my first bet, it starts to come back. But yeah, it can take a few rolls for sure. That happens to me. How about you, Chris?
Not really. The only time I can think of this, I'm thinking, okay, what about if I went to play blackjack now?
Right.
And I haven't played in a very long time. Would I feel like I forgot how to play? No, I mean, I still remember basic strategy. I don't remember all the index plays I used to use when I was actually counting. So that stuff is gone. But like I've said recently, I never actually try to count anymore. So I don't think that would really ever pop up. It's not, yeah, I mean, I get it. Because I mean, you always second guess yourself on certain things, or did I put the right bet out, or was that the right move I should make here? Or, I got a pair of 4s against a 5. Is this a split? You always try to remember those things properly, but yeah, it takes a while to get into the flow of things. But the easiest way to overcome that, Josh, is just a little liquid courage. Just have a drink, and you'll be ready to go.
That wasn't what I was going to say. I thought you were just going to say dive right in, but yeah.
Nope. Liquid courage. That solves everything.
It does solve a lot. Yeah, for sure. So thanks, Chris and Chris.
Yeah, you're welcome, and you're welcome. We received an email from Nasim. said, "You guys really do a good job of being informative without being afraid to speak your mind when something rubs you the wrong way. Really appreciate that. My question, do you guys have any recommendations for non-strip activities that listeners might like? Thank you so much, Nasim." I thought this would be a good question, Josh, since we were talking about off-strip properties. Why don't we mention a couple of our favorite off-strip activities?
Are we going to count going to Lovett Frozen Custard as a favorite off-strip activity?
It depends on if you like to die or not. If you have a death wish,
He doesn't
it's
mean
probably
die
the best
from the
thing you can do in
custard.
Vegas.
He means die
No,
from
no. The custard's amazing, but the area is a little shady.
Yeah. So, Chris, aside from going to Lovett Frozen Custard, which is my favorite thing to do as far as going off strip for activities, I really enjoyed the Pinball Hall of Fame with my kid. And I think sometime if I were ever on a solo trip and I had, maybe I lost my bankroll in the first hour and wasn't able to get a prophylactic TTO, let's say, I would go to the Pinball Hall of Fame, and you can spend a great time playing pinball or old video games for like $20. And it's fantastic. That's one of my favorite cheap, fun, if you're into that kind of thing, non-strip activities. What have you got, Chris?
Josh, I think my favorite thing I've ever done in Vegas, activity-wise, is off-strip. And if you've never been there before, it's called Speed Vegas. And what it is it's a racetrack with a bunch of very high-end exotic cars. Then you can drive these things, 5, 10,
That
20
would be
laps,
fun.
whatever you want to pay for. They put a trainer in the car with you that can do what they need to do, I think brake-wise and everything to keep you from dying. But honestly, the whole time I was doing it, Josh, they were encouraging me to go faster. They're like, come on, pedal. I mean, because you're so used to driving, on an expressway, no more than say 90 mile an hour.
Yeah.
And so when you get in a car like this and you hit the straightaway in this amazing Lamborghini with all the power in the world, and you hit like 100, 105, you're like, nope, I'm good. This is as fast as I need to go. And they're like, come on, hit it. And they're trying to push you to get to 120, 125. It's a fun experience. I did it with my girlfriend there one time. We had a terrific time. I'm going to say it's not the cheapest thing in the world. The price varies depending on what kind of car you drive and how many laps you want to do. The more laps you do, the cheaper it gets per lap, obviously. But I mean, Josh, you're talking a bare minimum, like $300 or $400 a person.
Right. A little different than the Pinball Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it's on the opposite side spending wise, but it is the most fun I've done off the strip, I think. It's probably a 10, 15 minute car ride, and they'll even pick you up if you need them to. And I would also throw in the Mob Museum downtown. I think that's a lot of fun as well.
As we talk about off strip, I actually don't think the Pinball Machine Hall of Fame counts now because that is on strip, but
Technically on the strip, yeah.
yeah. But I'm gonna say for purposes of this question that counts.
Okay, fair enough. So let us know if you guys have anything else that you really like to do off the strip, and we'll throw it in on the next episode.
Yeah, for sure. I know there's tons and tons and tons of things out there.
Oh, for sure. I mean, we talked about Area 51 that you went to a couple months ago, Josh,
Yep.
and you left that off your list.
I did. That was intentional. But
Oh, okay.
it was well, because we're talking about recommendations. I shouldn't say I don't recommend it, but we're only mentioning places that sponsored us, right, Chris?
I wish that was the case. Yeah, crapvegas.com/speedvegas.
For full
If you go
disclosure,
there, nothing's there. Yeah, there's nothing there.
Full disclosure, none of the places we've talked about have sponsored us.
Fair enough.
I did get a punch card from Lovett, so
Oh, well, there you go.
there we go. Right.
Way to go. We received an email from Robert B specifically. Robert said, Chris and Josh, when requesting a credit line at a casino, how much do you ask for? Is it the amount you expect to lose in a trip? More than that? Less than that? Just trying to figure it out. I'm requesting my first line at the Cromwell for an upcoming trip and just don't want to mess it up. Can you use the line at any other Caesars property too? Anything else I should know? Thanks again. You guys are the two brothers I never had. Robert.
Aw. Thanks, Robert.
That's very sweet, Robert.
Can we call you Bob? Should we call him Bob?
Let's go with Bobby.
Oh, Bobby. Okay. So, Bobby, those are great questions. Somewhere early on in the lore, in the history of Crap Vegas, we had an episode on lines of credit. So if you feel like it, that'll go into probably a lot more depth than we'll answer here. But let's kind of work through your questions. So as far as how much to ask for in your line of credit, there's a couple things you might want to consider. How much can you afford to lose is a great first question to ask, because from my experience, if you have a line of credit, you will eventually lose up to your line of credit. or perhaps more. Not saying that'll be the end of your trip or you'll walk away losing that much, but you'll at least draw that much from your line of credit. I don't know, Chris, is that a fair, or do you think that's accurate?
Yeah, I would say keep in mind how much you think you could potentially lose and make sure your line covers that. But at the same time, you don't want to request so much that you won't touch it. Because if you request a larger line than what you actually
That's a good
use,
point.
they're going to reduce the line down and you're actually going to upset them. They'd much rather have a line that you bounce up against the top and request TTOs if you need it than a line that's way more than you would actually ever play.
That's a really good point. So the other thing to factor is how much money do you have in the bank? And what I mean by that is when they look to set up a line for you and they do their checks and they contact your financial institution, they're going to want to make sure that you have X percent above whatever your line of credit is in your bank account, and that you've had that money in there for a while, for whatever period of time. So think about that too. If you only have $25,000 in whatever bank you're using, asking for a $25,000 line is probably not going to get approved. Asking for a $5,000 line might.
Yeah, I think that's 100% correct. And Josh, just so I don't forget, since you were so long-winded, it gave me a chance to go back and actually look when we talked about
Which episode it was?
It was episode 9. It's called Casino Credit. Is it right for you? Josh, that was back on August 21st of 2022.
Holy cow. We've been doing this too long.
We have, and I'll even say this, if you don't want to listen to us anymore, you can actually go on our website, crapvegas.com, and there's an article I wrote all about casino credit. Bobby, your last question, can you use the line at any other Caesars properties? The answer is no. And this is across the board. When you apply for credit at a property, whether it's a Caesars property, an MGM property, that credit is only good at the casino that you requested it at. So if you wanted to play at Bally's too, or Horseshoe now, you'd have to request credit there. And then if you want to play at Caesars, you'd have to request credit there. The only time that isn't true is if you're staying at Wynn, your credit also works at Encore. And if you're staying at Venetian, your credit also works at Palazzo. But other than that, there is no overlap.
Yep. So you need it at each property. The big thing to keep in mind now, casino credit for everybody. Casinos want you to have it. As Chris has talked about before, or maybe we've both talked about before, your host or whoever is booking reservations or anybody you're working with at the property, their ears perk up when you have a line of credit, for sure. But the danger is, so that part of it's good. The danger is you, at least in my experience, are more likely to, again, gamble higher because you have that credit out there.
Oh, yeah. I don't think there's anything that makes you gamble more than having a line of credit. It's guaranteed to increase the amount you play.
So just be ready for that. If you're responsible gamblers, and I think we have listeners that are very responsible gamblers that can use their line of credit responsibly, then go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Final question of the week, Josh. We got an email from Ashley Q. She said, "Hey guys, new gambler in general and curious about a couple things I heard at the casino last visit." Josh, she actually has a handful of questions, so let's take these one at a time.
Okay.
What is a hopping bet at craps, Josh?
A hopping bet is a one-time bet, and you can make that bet on a number of different sets of numbers. The most common one that I bet and that I see people bet are hopping hard ways. So if you want to hop the hard 8, that means you're betting a one-time shot. So let's say you make a $5 hopping hard 8. You're betting $5 that the very next roll is going to be double 4s, a hard 8. So they're one-time bets, and they're called, I don't know why they're called hopping, but you can make them on a lot of different numbers. You can make a hopping hard way bet. You can make a hopping 5-3 bet. What else am I missing, Chris? What other ways are there to define what a hopping bet is?
No, I think you got it. It's a one-roll bet that you can make on any result of the dice. And if it's a hard way, like Josh mentioned, it's going to pay 30-1. So the hard 4, 6, 8, and 10, those are all going to pay 30-1. Same thing for 2 and 12. But if it's a number that can be made an easy way, it's going to be paying 15-1. So if you take, let's say you hop the 8s and it comes 5-3 or it comes 6-2, those are going to pay only 15-1 instead of 30-1 because the dice could, go the opposite way. And it could be 5-3 with dice A, B, or it could be 5-3 with dice B, A, depending on what order they came in. So you got 2 different ways to actually make it, so it pays half as much.
Perfect. And it kind of feeds into what I think is Ashley's next question. What is a world bet? And Chris, I'm going to let you answer this one, which is why I read it.
We really should just call Dr. Mike and let him handle this. Maybe we could just get him on our phone and put him
That's
up on
right.
the speaker.
It's the phone
So
a
a
friend
world-
from what do you call it? It's the phone a friend from
Oh,
Who Wants to Be a
from,
Millionaire, right?
Millionaire, yeah. So a world bet. So there's a couple different bets that we can make. These bets are usually made on come out rolls, is where you see especially a world bet. But you have a horn bet, which is 4 bets, and that's betting on the 2, 3, 11, and 12 on a come out. So that would pay you on a yo or any of the horn numbers that you would typically lose on. Now, if you want to make it a world bet, it adds a 5th bet, and that's on any 7. Any 7 typically pays 4 to 1. So the one thing that people like about world bets is that if a 7 comes on the come out and you have a world bet, the bet pushes, which is kind of nice because there's 4 other bets and that bet pushes. But it gives you protection on a crap number and will give you a big bump on a yo coming on the come out. So it's just a horn bet plus an any 7 is all it is. It's 5 different bets.
Perfect. What you got next?
She says, regarding slots, why is it that everyone says you need to play maximum bet?
Well, the more you bet, the more you win.
Right. And the less you bet, the more you lose when you do win.
When you win, right? Exactly. No, in all seriousness, the reason that people want to bet max bet, I'm not saying you should. There are reasons you might not want to, particularly if your bankroll can't handle it. But it makes you eligible for higher levels of jackpot, things like that. So, for example, if a game has a mini bonus or a mini jackpot and a minor and a major and a grand, you might have to get max. You might have to be betting max bet to be eligible for those top 2 categories, a major and a grand, for example. And same thing on progressives. You might have to bet higher to be eligible for whatever the big progressive jackpot is.
Yeah, I think Josh hit it. That's not always the case. There are plenty of slot machines where you can win the progressives and the jackpots at any bet level.
Yep.
You just need to check the screen and check the rules to see what it is. But you're giving yourself a much worse chance if there are progressives tied to max bet and you can't play at that level when you start losing out on those things, because that's what takes the hold from maybe being 6 or 7% on that slot. And if you don't play at max, maybe all of a sudden it's like 15%.
Right.
So you might be doing yourself a disservice. And this pops up a lot when people are playing video poker. And the reason that is because the max payout on video poker, if you're playing all 5 coin in, is significantly higher on a royal flush than if you were playing 4. The correlation just isn't anywhere near. So it's always better to play max bet in those situations. Again, every game is different. Sometimes maybe it isn't. But the general rule of thumb is to play the highest denomination that you can at max bet. So if you can't play a dollar machine at 5 coin in to make it $5, you're usually better off playing a quarter machine with all 5 coin in. And she said, that's it for now. Appreciate all you guys do, Ashley. So thank you again, Ashley. We really appreciate it.
Yes, thanks, Ashley. Those are great questions.
Okay, guys, Patreon. That's patreon.com/crapvegas. As we mentioned earlier, there's now a full 50-minute review of the Venetian Palazzo Fountain Blue trip I took less than a week ago, I guess, at this point. So hop on over there and check that out. It's really good. And of course, we're getting ready for the whole Crap Vegas Bracket Challenge. The second round of voting is now going live on there. You can also vote on Twitter, so make sure you check those things out.
X.
Get those votes in. Yeah, good. Nice and late, so that's where we need it. Big thank you to people that have signed up over the past week. We've got a lot of really nice messages and new signups. A lot of people doing the annual to save, which is great. Thank you to Conflict Otter, which is by far my favorite name of a patron that we have.
Yes,
so welcome, Conflict Otter.
Right, is wonderful. Thank you.
Sean F., Adam D., Timothy R., Plath, maybe Plath?
Plath?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Well, they paid in euros, Josh, so I'm not sure.
Okay.
It could be a translation thing. Erica Q. and Neil B. So thank you all that have signed up over the past 2 weeks.
Thank you again very much. And I know at least one of those patrons, Chris, is a returning patron. So we thank you very much for coming back.
Yes, absolutely. Quick note for the patrons regarding Christmas gifts. I have sent out the final round of gifts at this point. If you haven't seen yours by, let's say, the middle of next week, let me know. It's either because I didn't get your address or it may be in transit still. Who knows what's going on with the Postal Service? I can give you a tracking number if you need it. But yeah, if you haven't sent me an address, please send it. I'd like to wrap this up and get anything left out at this point. Upcoming trips, Josh. I only have one thing on here to mention. That is our joint trip to Aria. I will be there January 19th through the 21st with you. I'm sure you're going to be there an extra 6 to 8 days.
Exactly.
I know I got a message on Patreon earlier today, Josh. I guess on the website, on our trip calendar, I put it as January 12th through the 14th. So I screwed that up. We will not be there the 12th through the 14th. I will fix that on the website later today. But we will be there the 19th through the 21st. And Josh, it feels like the first time we've played together in like 3 years.
It's been a while, hasn't it? I feel like we had a wind trip together somewhere, but we haven't had a good one recently. That's been one of our usual trips. So I'm looking forward to this. I'm very mad at MGM at the moment. My offers plummeted. I have no idea why.
Mine are hanging on by a thread because we haven't, Josh, the last time we were supposed to be at MGM was in September for my birthday.
Right before the cyber
attack. And it got canceled because of the cyber attack. And we ended up over at Wynn instead. So you're right. We haven't been to MGM properties since probably July, if I had to guess.
I think I had a trip in June, and then I think you had a quick one somewhere afterwards, if I remember right. But it's been since June for me. So, but my offers went like literally, I can barely get comped a standard room, which I expect more, and now I'm spoiled. And so we'll see. We'll see how the January trip grows, and then I may be done with MGM. I may be fully committing to Venetian Palazzo or Fontainebleau.
Well, see, I was smart, Josh. I reached out to our host well in advance, and I locked in our free play and all the stuff else I had on my account like 4 months ago. So I still have a really good free play number. He threw in some bonus free play since the birthday trip got canceled. So he's given that to me like 4 months after my birthday, which is awesome. I'm locked in for January and March at Aria unless something changes. So I'm not complaining.
So we'll see what happens. But anyway, yes, I'm very much looking forward to that trip. Chris and I have some shows lined up, which we'll talk about on this show. And really looking forward to it. And we have some patrons already or some fans already. They're going to meet us. James, I know, who is our moderator of our Facebook group, is going to be there and hopefully make himself available at MGM, not force us to go over to Wynn.
I mean, boy, that'd be horrible if we had to go to Wynn, wouldn't it, Josh?
It would.
It'd be the worst. A friendly reminder to subscribe and leave a review on your favorite podcasting app and to visit our merch store. That's crapvegas.com/shop. By the time this episode comes out, there's going to be 2 brand new items on that merch store that nobody's seen. So I encourage you to go check it out and find out what they are. Josh, anything else you want to talk about before we get out of here this week?
So, sometimes, Chris, I like to look at what's coming up in Vegas over the next couple weeks or so. And CES is coming up starting I think the day this episode drops or thereabouts, January 8th or 9th is the beginning of CES, which I would love to go to sometime.
Oh, you like higher table minimums and huge crowds everywhere?
I don't mean from a gambling perspective. I just mean I think I'm fascinated by all the electronic stuff at CES.
You actually want to go to the convention?
Yeah, not want to go to Vegas during CES.
Okay, that's what I thought you meant. That makes a lot more sense. I think that actually would be kind of fun.
So that's one. CES is coming up. But more exciting than that is at the Embassy Suites by the Hilton Convention Center on the weekend of, let's see, when is this? This is January 13th, I think. And these seem to be all together. There's an anti-aging seminar. There's Botox training. There's a complete facial aesthetics, and then sexual dysfunction training for men and women.
Well, that sounds perfect for you, Josh. That's like the trifecta of all the things that you'd want to hit.
Right.
As an aging man, I mean, geez. Yeah,
all
perfect.
at the Hilton Convention Center. So if that's of interest to any of our listeners, I just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you shared that because that's really good. I know a lot of our listeners are very excited now. Maybe you can schedule a joint trip and meet everybody there.
And yes, for sure. And by the way, they did not sponsor us. You can't go to
no, they definitely did not.
crapvegas.com
but Josh, if I get a chance,
sexual dysfunction.
Yes, please don't. When I go on the website later today and fix the dates on that first Aria trip, Josh, maybe I'll throw that on there and I'll just put your email address and say, reach out to Josh.
I thought you were going to say, I love that idea. I thought earlier when you were talking about the dates being wrong, I thought you were going to say January, whatever you have it as 14 through 16, 2021. Because it's not long like since you've updated the trip calendar.
Stop it. I updated the website recently, Josh, put the correct trips on there when I was putting the information for our bracket challenge.
Okay.
So make sure you check that out too, crapvegas.com/brackets. But no sponsorships this week to mention.
That's what we got.
Okay. Well, thank you all for listening. We will talk soon.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Vegas, here we come.
Thanks for listening to the Crap Vegas podcast.
Have you ever been to Vegas?
Check out all our recent news and our Vegas trip calendar by visiting crapvegas.com.
See you in Vegas.
So, Bobby, those are great questions. Somewhere early on in Crap Vegas history, Crap Vegas lore, we had a casino somewhere in casino, whatever I'm trying to say. We had an episode, somewhere early on in the lore, in the history of Crap Vegas, we had an episode on lines of credit.
Okay. What is a hopping bet at craps, Josh?
A hopping bet is basically a one-time bet on the hard ways. So, and that's not necessarily true as I'm saying it.
I was going to say it's a lot more than that. Why do I let you answer questions?
That's how I bet it.
Here's my answer. It's not correct, but I'm going to keep saying it. And just a quick note for our patrons, I have sent out a final round of your Christmas gifts for those that we were doing so well today.